When you ask Google Bard and ChatGPT a simple question like how many calories should a sumo wrestler eat per day, you'll get a fairly straightforward answer, and the answers are very similar. But that's not always the case. In this video, we're going to walk through asking the same question prompts to both Google Bard and ChatGPT to see what the results are. Google Bard launched last week, so it's only had about a week's worth of usage by the public to actually improve its results and get better. But it has come a long way since the really embarrassing marketing tweet a few months ago when it was asked what should a 9-year-old know about the James Webb Space Telescope, and it said that the space telescope had found the first exoplanet and taken a photo of the first exoplanet when that was clearly not accurate. And this was a faux pas that Google has since tried to rectify, and by launching Google Bard to the public now, they are trying to quickly improve the algorithm behind Google Bard. So let's see how Google Bard and ChatGPT compare. First, we're going to ask Google Bard what's its origin story to get a read on whether it lies, how creative it is, etc. And the results are pretty straightforward. Asking ChatGPT gives us a similar answer, but of course, ChatGPT is built on a different model than Google Bard, so the answer is slightly different. Next, let's see how truthful these bots are. So I asked, can you lie? Google Bard says that it's programmed not to lie. Let's see about ChatGPT. Same thing. But of course they have the caveat that their results may not be 100% accurate based on training models. When asked to provide some more relevant information like modern day who won the Oscars last year, Google Bard is unable to respond, even though this would be a typical search query that you could find in Google search results. ChatGPT, on the other hand, is able to only reference historical data from the previous year because that's as far as it's trained, so it could only provide the winners of in 2022, not the most recent 2023 results. Now to ask some more practical questions, like I'm a marketing manager and I'm making a sandwich for astronauts. What should I include in the marketing materials? So Google Bard replies with some basically typical marketing language of what marketing materials should include, but also includes some examples for a website, a brochure, a poster, a social media campaign, etc. So fairly practical, although it could go into a little bit more details. When ChatGPT is asked the same question, it also comes up with a list of potential marketing materials, but it's a little bit more direct in terms of these are the bullet points that you should include in your marketing materials, not generic marketing material information like Google Bard did. So it's a little bit more useful. You could, of course, keep asking ChatGPT to come up with different answers. Now we're going to ask both of them, what is the Super Bowl? And Google, of course, comes up with a Google-like result with a description pulled from the source at the bottom. And then ChatGPT also generates a description of what the Super Bowl is. Notice how in this case, Google includes a source so that it can show you what it's referencing. This isn't always the case with Google Bard results, but it was in this case. Now, who won the Super Bowl? Now, this is really relevant information. Most recent Super Bowl winner was Kansas City Chiefs, so it's displaying it there. However, ChatGPT struggles a little bit with this because, again, their data is lagging by a year. If you were looking for some helpful information, for example, your iPhone froze, you would go to Google and ask and search for articles on how to fix your frozen iPhone. So I did the same thing here. Google Bard responds with some tips and tricks on what to do. However, you may have to do more research, for example, to find out what side button you should be pressing to restart your iPhone. ChatGPT actually answers this a little bit more thoroughly by referencing specifically the volume up and volume down buttons, and they walk you through a little bit more detailed steps than Google Bard does. Now, if you're planning a trip, you might ask both of these tools what you should be doing in the given city. So in case we're going to Chicago next week, I want some recommendations on where to go. Google Bard comes up with a list, probably pulled from its whole database of blogs about traveling to Chicago. And ChatGPT, of course, is generating a similar list, but in a slightly different order. So, of course, both of these tools can be used to figure out travel recommendations, but you should do your own research to figure out where exactly you should go. Next, I wanted to ask Google Bard to draw an image. It doesn't have image capabilities yet, but it did do a nice job trying to describe the scene. And ChatGPT does a similar job here of describing the scene of a girl fishing in a pond. I saw some interesting results on Twitter for the next response, which is given the first 2 months of the year, January and February, what are the other months of the year? And as you can see here, Google Bard does it correctly. This must have been fixed because this is the bug that I was seeing. And then ChatGPT, of course, lists the same order. However, it listed in bullet form instead of comma separated form. So depending on what you want, you might choose either tool. Next, we are asking both tools how to change a tire. And Google Bard does a pretty good job of listing out the different steps, as well as tips to keep in mind for safety. And then ChatGPT, on the other hand, also lists out the steps, but provides a little bit more detail, again, similar to some of the other questions we've seen. This might just be due to how much time ChatGPT has been out on the market versus Google Bard. Next, you might find it useful to ask these tools some life questions, such as when you should get married. And of course, Google Bard's going to come up with some generic information, probably pulled from many, many different sources online about when you should get married. It doesn't cite any sources here, which is interesting, but the information is pretty relevant. ChatGPT lists a similar amount of recommendations for when you should get married. Neither tool makes a recommendation outright, but gives you considerations to take into account for your own decision. Similarly, we can ask both tools how to be a great parent. And it's going to, again, probably give us considerations. So there you go. Google Bard gives a bullet pointed list of how to set a good example, how to be consistent, basically how to be a great parent. And similarly, ChatGPT comes up with very similar answers, but of course their own recommendations. And the final question I asked was a little bit selfish. I wanted to understand what's going to be in the iPhone 15 to see if I should wait to upgrade my phone. It comes back with some predictions about what's rumored in the iPhone 15, but not, of course, not exactly what's going to be in the iPhone 15 because that's not anywhere. And if it had come back with specific details, there might have been some leaked information that Google Bard had access to. ChatGPT actually takes a much more conservative approach to this answer, where it just offers some generic information about things that could be upgraded or improved about the phone. Doesn't make any specific callouts such as USB-C or anything. And that's likely because it's also trained on a historical data set where likely the iPhone 14 hadn't even come out yet when ChatGPT was trained. So there's no input information on newer iPhones that it could have used to extrapolate and try and figure out what's in the iPhone 15. Lastly, I wanted to test how well these tools generate code. So I asked both of them to generate the Fibonacci sequence in C#, which is a language primarily used by Microsoft. So as you can see, Google Bard generated a Fibonacci sequence, and this is actually different code than it was generated the last time I ran this query. And ChatGPT also generated some code. However, it is different than what Google Bard came up with. So as you can see, these tools are both generating their own versions of code. They also provide an explanation of how the code works, which is really useful if you're just learning how to code or trying to do something new and want an explanation of how the code was written and why it was written the way it was. Now that I've shown you a demonstration of Google Bard versus ChatGPT responding to various queries, what are the main differences? Obviously, both of these tools are chatbots, have a very similar interface where you just have text input and it returns a text response. That's changing obviously with ChatGPT new version with GPT-4 where it can actually accept image inputs as well. And I'm sure Google Bard at some point will provide that input support as well. But what are the main differences between the two different chatbots? First of all, it seems like Google Bard is faster at responding to queries than ChatGPT. Obviously, I'm running the free version of ChatGPT in this demonstration and sped up some of the responses. So the responses are slower with ChatGPT. They are a lot faster in the paid version of ChatGPT, but they're still slower than Google Bard. This is likely because Google's pulling from a lot of its search algorithms as well, probably as input to Google Bard, so it can quickly generate, whereas ChatGPT is likely to be creating more of its responses on the fly based on its entire database of training data versus pulling from some sources. And you can clearly see that with some of the responses by Google where it actually cites the sources versus ChatGPT is pulling from its whole database of billions and billions of parameters that it's used in its training model. Google Bard also has more recent information, so they're able to pull in the more recent Oscar information, more recent Super Bowl information, as you saw in the queries, compared to ChatGPT, and that's because ChatGPT was only trained up to basically early 2022 at this point, and obviously that's going to change. They're going to get more training data as new versions of GPT come out and as their existing algorithms get better and better. But for now, Google Bard has more recent information. They also have fairly similar answers actually for generic questions like when should you get married, how to change a tire. ChatGPT does tend to show a little bit more detailed information when it's asked for instructions on how to do something, but in general the answers are comparable, and that's probably because those kind of questions have fairly straightforward answers, and therefore don't need any supplemental information or the AI to really deeply think about what its responses should be. Hopefully that gave you a good overview of the capabilities of Google Bard and ChatGPT as of this current time. This is the end of March 2023 as of the time this video is published, and these algorithms and tools available for AI have been evolving rapidly over the last 4 or 5 months. So I'm sure what I've demonstrated in these videos with Google Bard and ChatGPT are going to be obsolete in even 6 months' time. So keep an eye on the changes that are coming in the next few months and next few years in terms of AI and how it impacts these tools. Thanks for watching, and for more videos like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks.